glad you tuned into today's video. As y'all saw, I got a massive reading TBR to tell y'all about. But before we even get into all of that, do you know who you're talking to right now? Like, do you know who you're conversating with? Baby, it's me, Kay the original.
I would like to get to know if you could be the kind of girl that you get down for. 'Cause when I look at you, I feel something tell me that you're the kind of...
Okay guys, springtime is officially here. Like, spring is officially here and I'm so excited for it. Like, spring is one of my favorite seasons. And for those of y'all who watched my last video diary, if you haven't watched that, go ahead and tune in. Y'all know that I do springtime a teensy-weensy bit different. I define spring as from March 1st to May 1st. Okay guys, so I'm gonna start off by telling y'all the books from my winter reading TBR that transfer over because I just didn't get the chance to read them and I really want to. All right, y'all, so these are the books that's getting transferred over. They're kind of at the top of my list to be read because they're transfers, and I don't know, I just don't like the whole trying to read more books when I have other books that I want to read, you know what I'm saying? So these are the ones that's most likely getting read first because they're transfers. The first things first is my honorable mention, God is a Black Woman. Okay, y'all need to go tune in to my winter reading TBR to know all about this one. But this is the only book that I read in the month of February, and it was amazing. It was amazing. It was amazing. It changed my perspective on a lot of things and the way I view a lot of things. So if you're open to different theologies and different perspectives and different ways of thinking, I definitely recommend this book. Next up, we have what I am currently reading, which is It Ends With Us by Miss Colleen Hoover, and I'm going to follow that up with It Starts With Us by Miss Colleen Hoover. I'm only like 3-4 chapters into this book and it's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It has some very serious topics that it discusses within the first chapter, so it should come with a massive trigger warning if you are sensitive about certain topics such as domestic violence, suicide, and things of that nature, especially death. Death is very prominent in the first chapter of this book. So if you have triggers about that, I would definitely suggest, you know, maybe not reading it or preparing yourself before you read this book. Make sure that y'all go follow me on IG at Kayytheorginall on all platforms, and look for my highlight titled The Librarian to keep up with me and what I'm reading and my thoughts on different books. All right, y'all, so I'm kind of gonna go through these quickly, like I said, because I've already talked about them and I'm really just excited to tell y'all more about the other books that I have selected for this TBR. We have Deva Shatiri's Last Day by Kayytheorginall, The Fortress, a Love Story by Danielle Trissoni, Black Women Will Save the World, an Anthem by April Ryan, The Sacrifice by Ren Chepika, and the To All the Boys I Loved Before trilogy by the one and only Jenny Hall. I'm really, like, I love this trilogy so much, and I'm very sad that I didn't get to read it during the winter season, so I'm definitely going to be reading this spring season. Okay, y'all, so now we can finally get into the 16 books I have for my actual spring reading TBR. First up is Looking for Alaska. This is the winding love story between Miles, a.k.a. Pludge, and a beautiful girl named Alaska who he meets at Clover Creek Boarding School. That's all I'm gonna say about that one, because most of y'all know by now, if you're watching another one of our reading TBRs, that I like to go into books blindly, not really knowing a lot about them before I read them. Then we have An Abundance of Catherines. Okay, so this one is essentially about a child prodigy named Colin who only dates girls named Catherine. But the problem is he's dated 19 Catherines and all of them have dumped him. I don't know much about this one, but baby, if you've dated 19 Catherines, maybe Catherine's not your thing. Alrighty, next up we have Paper Towns. This follows the story of a boy named Quentin and a young adventurous girl named Margot, who Quentin has spent a lifetime loving from afar. The night after they go on this wonderful all-night adventure that Margot has planned, she unfortunately ends up going missing. But she left clues behind, and the clues are for Quentin. And last but not least, for John Green, we have the wonderful, 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 wonderful Fault in Our Stars. Now let me tell you something. If you have never heard of this book, then obviously you're an alien and this is your first time on Earth, and I just so happened to be the first video that you came across. And if that's so, hey alien bestie, how you doing? Come get me. You know, the Earth is kind of ghetto. But for real, y'all, The Fault in Our Stars is a beautifully heartbreaking love story between Augustus Water and Hazel. Now, that's all I can say about that one, because if you know, you know. And if you don't know, you need to go find out. All right, y'all. So I have only 3 books for this next category, which is mysteries. Now, like I told y'all, I'm into very light mysteries for the spring season just because I think spring is just light and airy, and I don't really like to read anything too hard or too harsh for the spring season. But with that being said, I think I have 3 amazing mysteries picked out. The first being House of Ash by Hope Cook. This one is about a young boy named Colin who, when walking in an eerie forest one night, starts hearing voices. Now, he's thinking, I must have some type of mental illness. So he starts searching for answers because he desperately does not want that to be true, because his father has had a history with mental illness. Searching through this forest, he stumbles across Gravenhurst, I'm not really sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Gravenhurst, which is a labyrinth-style mansion that burned down in 1894. When he goes inside, he sees a young Victorian girl who seems to be trapped inside this forgotten mirror. And his hopes is that if he's able to solve this mystery, then not only will he stop hearing the voices, he will also hopefully save this girl. Now, 100 years in the past, the girl in the mirror, whose name is Mila, is fighting her own battles. After her mother's disappearance, she realizes her stepfather's true intentions, and her sister must fight to escape the house and discover all of its secrets before it devours them both. I am so excited to read this book, just because I love that not only is it a hint of mystery is told from 2 different perspectives, and there seems to be a slight hint of some type of lightly forming romance. So I'm definitely going to be reading this. I'm probably not even going to lie to y'all, start reading this as soon as I finish this video, like for real. Okay, y'all, so next up is After the Flood by Cassandra Matong. I'm not really sure how you pronounce her last name, but I believe it is Matong. I got this book from a cute little bookstore. It's like an underground bookstore that I found in downtown Carrollton. If y'all go to UWG, I 100% suggest that y'all go to downtown and y'all look for the underground bookstore. It's so cute. It's so like whimsical in there for a bookstore, and it's literally underground. Like, you have to walk under some buildings to get to it, for real. So I don't know a lot about this one, so I'm just gonna read from the back and let y'all know what to say. It says, a little more than a century from now, our world has been utterly transformed. After years of slowly overtaking the continent, Rising floodwaters have obliterated America's great coastal cities and then its heartland, leaving nothing but an archipelago of mountaintop colonies surrounded by ocean. Lastly, for this category is Charisma by Jenny Ryan. This follows a young girl named Ashlyn who is extremely introverted and extremely shy. So when she's offered the opportunity to try this new underground therapy drug named Charisma that is supposedly supposed to change her personality, she jumps at the opportunity. Immediately, the effects happen and she is charming and vivacious and she becomes popular. The media goes crazy when the drug becomes contagious and then deadly, and the doctor who started this whole trial goes missing. Next up, y'all, I have 5 books by the wonderful and amazing Nicholas Sparks. For those of y'all who don't know who Nicholas Sparks is, he is the mastermind behind some of your most favorite romantic dramas and romance movies that, I mean, what can I say? The greatest ones that you can think of, 9 times out of 10, came from Nicholas Sparks' mind. Your girl is a hopeless romantic and spring just screams love to me. So how could I not read books by the man who writes it so perfectly? Like, I don't know, he makes endless love stories and I'm a sucker for that at the heart. The first one I will be reading is Dear John. Now, all of my real romance girlies out there and my Channing Tatum lovers already know about Dear John. Great movie. I suggest you watch it. I also suggest giving the book a try because I'm a firm believer in the book is always better than the movie. And that's the main reason why I'm giving so many Nicholas Sparks books a chance. This story follows John. After high school, he joins the army, and while he's on furlough, he meets this beautiful girl named Savannah. Now, they spend this whole time falling madly in love, and Savannah vows that she will wait for John until after he finishes his tour of duty. But neither one of them could foresee the tragic events of 9/11 and how it changed our country after that. So John must now choose between love and his country. Later on, when he finally returns to North Carolina, is when the real story between them arises. Next up, we have Safe Haven, another amazing movie. If you know, you know. When a mysterious woman named Katie arrives in the small town of Southport, many questions arise about her past. But Katie is determined not to make any serious emotional connections and just stay to herself. But she ends up forming 2 relationships, one with Joe, her next door neighbor, and another with a man named Alex, who is a widow and has 2 kids. Katie slowly starts to let her guard down and she becomes attached to Alex and his family. But unfortunately, her past is still lingering in the background and continues to haunt her. Okay, so then we have The Lucky One. This is another great movie. It stars Zac Efron as one of the main characters. In this book, Zac is named Logan. He is a Marine officer who finds a photograph of a beautiful young woman. Now, this photograph coincidentally just seems to bring him luck, from winning little gambling games, poker games, things like that, to even helping him survive a deadly combat mission. This leads him to go find that woman in the picture because he desperately needs to know who is this woman that practically saved his life. He was unexpected when he found Elizabeth, the woman, and his attraction for her was instant. But he decided to keep who he is and his luck in finding her photograph a secret. And this secret not only threatens to tear apart the love that they develop, but also their lives. Did I say that was a great movie? Like, it's a great movie. So I'm really excited to read the book because I know the book is going to be so much better than the movie. Okay, so the last 2 ones we have are just novels. They're not movie adaptations, so I don't really know too much about them. The first one being At First Sight. So like I said, this one is not a movie, so I'm just going to have to go into it blind and trust Nicholas, but I do trust Nicholas. Is no question that this book is gonna be amazing. This one follows the story of Jeremy, who swore first he would never leave New York, second that he would never fall in love again because he already had one failed marriage, and three, that he would never become a parent. But Jeremy finds himself living in North Carolina, newly engaged to a wonderful woman named Lexi, and is anticipating starting a family. Now, a mysterious email comes along and sets off a disastrous chain of events that ends up testing Jeremy and Lexi's love. And I have to find out, will their love survive? And the last one we have is The Rescue. I feel like I'm gonna have mixed opinions about this one just because of the way the main character is presented. It's supposedly about a firefighter named Taylor who can never really find himself fully being in love. You see, he goes after women that he knows needs to be rescued in some type of way. You know, his type is the damsels in distress. But once he helps them through their crisis and, you know, they actually start developing true feelings for him, you know, he's out of there. He's over it. And that's just not his vibe anymore. Like I said, I kind of have a problem with that, but we'll see where the story takes us. Now, it goes on to follow a young woman named Denise, who is a single mother of a 4-year-old with learning disabilities. And unfortunately, her car skids off the road one night during this terrible, terrible, terrible storm happening in Taylor's town. Taylor's the one that ends up being on call to go rescue her, and he has to deliver the unfortunate news that they cannot find Kyle, her son. So they go on this mission to search for him and hopefully find him. And that's when Taylor realizes that this rescue will not be like the others. Now, if you haven't been able to tell already, I'm very much a love at first sight, deep, intense, epic romance, love stories type of girly. I just can't get into the enemies to lovers trope that y'all love so much. Like, that's just not my vibe. I just can't get into that at all. Y'all can hate me, but I do. I love deep and intense and fast love type of books. Like, that's just my vibe. And with that being said, we're coming up on our last 4 books of this TBR, and they're amazing. Like, all others excluded, these 4 are amazing in their own independent ways. Number 1 being Emergency Contact by Mary H.K. Choi, or Chio. I'm not really percent sure. I think it's Choi though. I think it's Choi. This one follows the story of Penny. Penny is headed off to college in Austin, Texas to become a writer, and she is so anxious and ready to leave her old, boring life behind. She did not care for it at all. Then you have Sam. Sam is going through a really bad rut in life, like really, really bad, y'all. He's living on a mattress on the floor in the coffee shop that he works at. He knows that this is just a part of his life that he has to go through before he could become the young, famous, aspiring director that he wants to be. Now, when Penny and Sam meet, it is not cute and lovey at all. It actually ends up being extremely, extremely awkward. But they exchange contact information anyways, and they keep in touch via text. And during this time, they become digitally inseparable, sharing all of their deepest, darkest secrets and fears and ambitions and dreams. And they start falling in love without ever seeing each other. Now we have Something to Live For by Richard Roper. Now this follows the story of Andrew. And Andrew, he's the type of person that presents that he has the perfect life. A perfect wife with 2 loving children at home. But this isn't necessarily true. And his little white lie is starting to become a little too much to keep up with. Next up is Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. Or Rowell? Rainbow Rowell. Yes, I'm sorry. Eleanor and Park by Rainbow Rowell. This is supposed to be a really great book. I don't really know much about it, so I'm just gonna once again read y'all what it says. It says, two misfits, one extraordinary love. Eleanor, red hair, wrong clothes, standing behind him until he turns his head, laying beside him until he wakes up, making everyone else seem drabbier and flatter and never good enough. Eleanor. Park. He knows she'll love a song before he plays it for her. He laughs at her jokes before she even gets to the punchline. There's a place on his chest just below his throat that makes her want to keep promises. Park. Set over the course of one school year, this is the story of two star-crossed 16-year-olds, smart enough to know that first love almost never lasts, but brave and desperate enough to try. Last but certainly not least, we have Meet Earl and the Dying Girl. I love this book so much, and I'm so glad I'm deciding to give it a reread. Like, this is probably my favorite book of all time, and the movie adaptation is beautifully tells this story. Meet Earl and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews follows the story of this young boy named Greg. He just hasn't had a great high school experience, and this is his senior year, so he decides he's just gonna keep a very low profile and make mediocre movies with the only person he truly considers a friend, this boy named Earl. Now, this plan he devised only lasts for about 8 hours before his mother forces him to become friends with this girl who unfortunately is diagnosed with cancer. And that's all that I'm going to be telling y'all about this book, because it is described as the funniest book you'll ever read about death, but I think it's the most beautiful book you'll ever read about death. Like, The Fault in Our Stars is beautiful, but Meet Earl and the Dying Girl is beautiful. I remember the first time I read this book, I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. But it's just a beautiful story. And once again, after I read this, I will be watching the movie. All right, y'all. That's all that I have for you for today's video. Thank you for tuning in. And if you made it this far, please leave the little stack of books emoji down in the comments to let me know that you've watched to the end. And also tell me which book you guys are thinking about picking up, or which book sounds the most interesting to you. Of course, any recommendations that you guys think I would enjoy, please drop them down below, as well as following me on IG at Kayytheorginall and looking for my highlight, The Librarian, to keep up with everything I'm reading and my reviews on the books. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your sister, cousin, bestie, mama, auntie, and anybody else that you could think of about me. I'm gonna be having a lot of fire content coming for y'all in the month of April. So please stay tuned. And as always, be sure to pick up the phone the next time that I call. Bye.